So I'm Bud. I'm the chief product officer at a company called Tacen. My entire team, Wave team, we're sponsoring here. If you haven't had a chocolate or a mint, I know it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Everyone's kind of like low on blood sugar. So come talk, have fun. So before I get into my talk, let's do a quick poll. Who here's launched a token already? 1, 2, wow. Who here wants to launch a token? Okay, so this is the right audience. Who wants to launch a token has no idea how to do it? Okay, so this is the right talk for everybody here. Here's my socials. Take a picture if you guys want to follow up later. Next slide, please. Okay, so what are we talking about today? Who are we, and why am I talking to you about launching tokens? How did we do it with Web 2? Like, what was the process of launching a project, raising money, kind of building like the entire life cycle of a Web 2, and then comparing it to what do we do with Web 3? And like, what are the norms? Where do we want to go? What are best practices to do here? And then how do we fit in as a consulting organization? Okay, next slide. Okay, so who are we? So our mission is very simple. In 2019, we started a project where we wanted to put a centralized exchange and use decentralized settlement layers to clear it, really tying into the benefits of both. Not really pitching you on our product, but we went down the Web 2 model of starting to talk to venture capitalists, pulling seed money. It was really hard. They didn't really get what we were doing. We, had about 6 months of runway. And then we went into this whole idea of how do we tie into tokens? How do we tie into, like, we wanted to build a crypto exchange. We wanted to put tokens as part of our model. So we ended up raising $20 million worth of capital, operating capital, on the back of launching this token. And we are still wholly focused on building our exchange, our main project, the thing that we raised the capital for. But every time I tell somebody this story, they come up to me and they say, how did you do it? Where did you register? How did you build the communities? How did you build a business out of this idea and then use the capital to continue forward? So keeping that in mind, I put a business unit together to actually work with other projects, companies, entrepreneurs that want to take their ideas and go out to either forming DAOs, selling utility tokens, or any of the means of generating capital through crypto, and walk them through the best practices, right? This isn't like the Web 2 days where you're trying to take out your competitors. We really feel that we want to help all of their projects come up in the most compliant way, because nobody wants the SEC tapping on their door. Nobody wants to go to jail because they took money in the wrong way. Next slide, please. Okay, Web 2. So for those of us who are coming from Web 2, or if you're a bit younger, you might remember the Silicon Valley HBO show. Has anybody seen that? Silicon Valley, yeah, fantastic show. I can tell you, I spent 7 years in Silicon Valley. Everything that they put in that show is true. All the tropes, all of the personality types, it's completely right. So there was a formula for building a company, a Web 2 company, and it was very simple. You would form a team, you'd find a garage, you put the people in the garage, you would build a prototype, something that shows that you kind of know what you're talking about, that you might have the right qualities to be an entrepreneur, to get people to believe in what you're trying to build. And then you'd go out and you'd seek investment. And this was usually friends and family. They put in 5,000, 10,000, 25, whatever it may be. And you trade them their early money for some equity in your company. Take that, go out, build a prototype, start to get feedback. There was a prescription for how you set up everything you need to run a business. Where do you incorporate? Delaware LLC. You set up a bank account. You set up checking accounts. You set up Amazon Web Services. Like, there was this fingerprint that any venture capital firm or incubator will kind of put you down, and they've been using that for the last 20 years. Eventually, once you start seeing traction, you would increase sales. Once you hit certain sales numbers, raise more capital, build bigger business, raise more capital, build a bigger business, raise more capital, eventually go public. So Web 2 was really a IPO in 7 to 10 years. And this is kind of just how it happened, right? Until we started to reduce the friction of how money moves with crypto, with Web3. Next slide, please. Okay, so is there a token playbook for Web3? And I want to stand on stage and tell everybody here, yes, there is, and I'm going to tell you how to do it, but it's not true. Uh, Things change so quickly. Laws in different jurisdictions change. There's really not this linear path, but more of this matrix of decisions that you need to make based on what your project is, what you want to get out of it, how you want to raise capital. Do you want to have a DAO for voting within the organization? And there's a ton of questions that you need to ask yourself to be able to navigate what's the best way for you to get your token to market. So this is kind of what I just came up with for what we've seen with a lot of the projects we've been working with. It still starts with an idea, form a team, ideally people who have a background in whatever space you're trying to build. Still go out and seek angel investment, but this time, instead of trading it for equity, you're trading it for tokens or an agreement for future tokens once you mint them. But then it gets a bit murky, right? There is no, I go and obviously set up a Delaware LLC. There's questions to be asked. Do I need to set up a legal entity? Can I set up a DAO? Do I have to do both? Is my token a security? And this is a very important one, because if it is a security and you don't go through all the diligence you need to be able to do that when you collect money, the SEC is not going to like that. How do I get the money that I collect from crypto and pay real world bills, right? There are best practices for all of this. And then in a token generation event, we're seeing an exchange listing within 6 to 12 months. And I want to touch on this point right now, because in the Web 2 model, founders, early investors, friends and family, everybody who's ever wanted to financially stake the project is sitting on that investment for 6 to 10 years. But the thing that we're finding with Web3, and especially projects that are doing this very quickly, is early investors are getting liquidity in 6 to 12 months when that token starts to be listed on an exchange and or is able to be traded in a swap scenario like on Uniswap. So this allows you to get investors in, get investors out, and continue to build your community to have net promoters all the way through, rather than having somebody who put in money 5 years ago and really is not contributing to the ethos of your project, kind of getting dragged along all the way through. But then, the liquidity event isn't the end in the Web3 model. Really, that's when you can really start building and growing a project that scales. Next slide, please. Okay, so where do we come in? So we put together this token launch playbook that really helps a company walk through the decision-making matrix of everything that you need to figure out on that Web3 walkthrough. We help uncover the unknown unknowns. I can't tell you how many times I've sat down with a team who are very technical in like whatever esoteric area they're building, and we say, have you thought of X? Have you thought of where you're going to set up an entity to launch a token? And they say, I didn't even think about that. I actually didn't even know that this is something that I should be losing sleep over. So really what we're trying to do is help these projects, these entrepreneurs, focus all of their time on what they're trying to build. It's hard enough building your prototypes. It's hard enough showing value to your communities, building your communities. You don't need to be spending time worrying about where do you need to set up legal entities? How do you do repatriation of assets? One of the quotes that we have from one of our early projects that we launched is, and this is the CEO of this project, he said, I spend 70% of my time dealing with token purchasers, and all I want to do is build my project. And that was really the impetus for why did we create a business unit to do this. So we've taken all of our best practices. We have a really good legal team that goes through and watches for everything that's coming up and changes in what the Web3 playbook should be looking like. And we help projects move through that. General things that we help with for strategy, entity creation, marketing, building communities, blockchain selection, smart contract writing. A lot of times you don't want to just give tokens out, especially in the utility sense. You want to lock people up on vesting periods or distribution schedules for investors. Those contracts exist. Good ones are important. But you want to make sure that you're incentivizing people to build a project with you, not just purchase something and then dump it on the market in 6 months and crash the price of your asset. And really, what our goal is for projects that are ready, that are serious, that want to fundraise using tokens, we get you from idea to an exchange listing in 6 to 12 months. And that's really what we want. We want to use tokens as this anti-Web2, this anti-equity ability for you to raise capital, build that community, have that tighter connection, and benefit from the liquidity available. And next slide. Q&A. This is actually a troll slide. There is no time for Q&A, but we have a booth and we have chocolate. So if anybody wants to talk, and I saw a lot of hands right here, this whole area here, I expect you to come talk to me about and have some chocolate, and we'll talk about your projects. I would love to hear about your projects and talking about like what path to raising capital would look like. Thanks.